the city. Politics, progress, game boards, objects viewed like pawns till we change up our mindset. Value of the dollars at the center of this conflict, where lives only matter if they serve to make a profit. But if a midget sees further on the shoulders of the giant, then we should see further than the tyrant. Build a future within the lights. Get success as our science in the quest to go higher. It's the heart of the city. Wake up, world. Welcome to another episode of HeartCity TV. I'm your host, Malik Boyd. I hope that wherever you are, you're in good spirits and all is truly well. Now, if you are on the northeastern or just the East Coast in the United States, you're dealing with tremendous weather issues. And so I hope that those who are affected by the inclement weather are doing well, that you and your families are safe in the midst of all the challenges. There is another wave coming in this weekend, so please be prepared. Do not wait till Saturday to go shopping and do some of the things that you need to do. Do it now. Protect yourself and your family by getting ahead of the game. More importantly, be courteous, especially if you see senior citizens, those up in age who are trying to get themselves together for this storm. Help them out. Make sure that they get to their cars safely. If you're in the store with them, there's more than one loaf of bread. Make sure they get what they need. You don't have to rush and push them out the way. It's important that we have a heart as it relates to all of our people, especially the vulnerable who are in our society. And there is code blues everywhere across the Eastern Seaboard. And so if you see individuals that are without resource, who are homeless, trying to survive, engage them. See if you can at least get them to a shelter or get them some support. Use your phone, 311 if you're here in Philadelphia. That will guide you through those steps. The more we help each other, the more we can take care of not just ourselves, but our community, have a better place for us all. Right now, there were memorial services in DC for Capitol Police who have lost their lives in the recent events leading up to this transition of power. All of us understand how grave this situation is, to have individuals with extreme views crashing down on the Capitol. That is not the way change will ever, truly be made. And yes, we can reflect back to the Boston Tea Party and other scenarios, slave revolts, the list goes on. The challenge that we saw in many of these scenarios is that some of these individuals didn't even vote. They didn't even use the process that has been put in place for years to address these issues. And so to those who may be disillusioned with both parties, have extreme views towards one party versus the other, please, by all means, exhaust all of the legal ways to make change. Right now, the FBI and other organizations are still looking at extremist groups who are considering violence across the country. If there is any plea that could be heard, it would be the plea for you to stop the planning, stop the extremist approach to change. There are ways to do it in a proper manner. There are ways to be heard in a proper manner. And quite frankly, poverty has impacted us all. COVID has impacted us all. And for those who are not just seeking power for power's sake, and for the sake of white supremacy or any other extreme view, understand that our issues can be collectively addressed. Everybody's not going to get their issues addressed at the same time. However, being present, being connected, being together in our various groups, and being forceful about what we want to see happening in a legal, proper way is the way to bring change. So I'm encouraging all of you who, if you know someone who's thinking about making moves in an extremist way, talk to them. And if you can't talk to them, there's another phone call you should probably make. The stop snitching rule does not exist here. Lives are at stake. And it's important that we address these flames as they rise and make sure that we don't have a forest fire of political issues, especially in our urban centers. The other thing that I would ask on behalf of the Heart City team is that you have pragmatic conversation. If you don't agree with an individual, you don't have to block them on Facebook. You don't have to call their name out. You don't have to curse them in their firstborn and lineage. It's okay to disagree. We don't have to argue all day. It creates bad energy in ourselves, and it creates bad energy in the social space. Allow the space for different views. It's okay. And so I hope that in this new space, we are taking time out to address these things in very real ways. Now, we always start the show off in prayer. Thank you for the many comments and individuals across the board who have sent us notes. Some of you felt some kind of way about guests that we are planning on having on this show today. Know that, there's no black card for you to take from me. And we always want to make sure that the redemption power is present and is a platform that God can use through this space. He who was without sin cast the first stone. And so all of us have things and challenges that we wish to change in our lives, things that we're not proud of. More importantly, how do we move forward? And so if there's any opportunity for forward motion, if there's any opportunity to learn from an experience that one has had, we're going to do that, and we're going to create the platform for that. And so I thank you for those who have sent the compliments, have sent the critiques, who have sent the hate mail. I appreciate it all. It all lets us know that we're on the right track, because this is what this show has been all about. And so if you would join me really quickly in a moment of prayer. Heavenly Father, we come before you just to say thank you, recognizing that this day is not promised. We offer it back to you from whence it came. We ask you now to be with us wherever we may be found, recognizing that we are all a part of your creation. We are all brothers and sisters, no matter the background, race, creed, or origin. Allow us to remember that now, not just this day and the following days. Allow us to love on each other a little bit more. Allow us to understand truly what love is, not just love for others, but love of self as well. Allow this show to be a part of the healing that needs to take place wherever you deem it to have a need. We ask you to bless those who are under the sound of my voice, those who will see this broadcast at a future time. Be with them and let them know that there are brothers and sisters here in this life journey, life experience, that love them, want to see them succeed, and are willing to join in a collective effort to do just that. May every guest who comes before us today be showered with not just your mercy and grace, but endless blessing, enlargement of territory like none other. And we'll be careful to give your name the honor and praise now and forever. Amen. Thank you for joining me in prayer. I am going to a commercial break. On the other side, we're going to have a very, very heartfelt conversation around COVID-19, what's happening with our incarcerated community. If you remember, we had PAILP in a special presentation, a special broadcast. Fridays are our normal days for special broadcasts. And we talked about what's happening in the institutions across the state, what we need to do to ensure that our brothers and sisters who are incarcerated have what they need, that they aren't impacted by being enclosed in a confined space with COVID potentially on the rise in their locations. No way to stay isolated in the ways that you and I enjoy by staying in our homes and the like. And so we want to make sure that we're also talking about what has happened since that time that we've had the special broadcast, and you'll hear from Ming on what we need to do, how we need to advocate with PAILP to ensure that our brothers and sisters who are incarcerated have everything that they need. I'm going to a break. We've got to pay bills. On the other side, you'll hear from PAILP. You're watching Heart City TV. We'll be right back.
Yo, what's up? This is Will I Am, and you're watching Heart City TV.
We're back. You're watching Heart City TV. I'm your host, Malik Boyd. I am really excited to have Ming back with us. If you were watching the broadcast, we had some of the most challenging technical issues during some of her most powerful statements about what's happening in our incarcerated community. And it's important that we not only bring her back, but really address these issues head on. Ming is the executive director of the Pennsylvania Institutional Law Project, which is a legal aid organization that advances the civil rights of incarcerated and institutionalized people through legal representation and advocacy. Ms. Ye has litigated dozens of individual and class action cases challenging unconstitutional conditions for prisoners and detainees, tried several jury cases to verdict, and argued successfully before the Supreme Court and the U.S. appeals for the Third Circuit. She also was an adjunct professor of law at the University of Pennsylvania Law School, where she co-taught the Civil Practice Clinic for 5 years. I am excited to have Ming with us today. Welcome back home to Heart City. It's great to have you with us.
Thanks so much for having me back. I appreciate it.
So, Sue, we had an amazing time. We talked about a very creative documentary that was put out by your organization in reference to this crisis that's happening with our incarcerated family. Where are we now? I know we've put that out and you've been advocating amongst other organizations to try and get some change in the space. Vaccines are now all the rage for all of us. We're watching Moderna and AstraZeneca and others present themselves and their vaccines to bear. What's happening as it relates to vaccines for those who are incarcerated?
So the first thing I want to say is many things actually have not changed, unfortunately, for people who are incarcerated. Many prisons are still dealing with access to proper medical care, access to having tests done regularly, regular universal testing for incarcerated people and staff. Those are vital tools for fighting coronavirus in prisons. What is newly developed is the possibility of vaccines. What is incredibly important is that both incarcerated people and prison staff are both vaccinated, not just a priority to people who work in the prisons. That's important, of course. We know that that might be one vector where the coronavirus is entering the prisons, but the medical experts and the public health experts all agree that incarcerated people should be vaccinated just at the same time, in the same wave, if you will, with the prison staff. So that is really important. But I want to emphasize many things have not yet changed. People are still in severe lockdowns.
Wow.
We had a recent, I guess you could call it positive development in the Philadelphia prisons. But right now, even with that development, that means instead of 15 minutes out of their cell, they now are entitled to 45 minutes out of their cell. That means 23 plus hours. People are confined in a small space, the size of a small bathroom, for 23 plus hours a day.
Wow. I can't even, I'll just be honest. I can't even stay, in my bedroom for more than a couple hours, or living room or den for more than a couple hours. And you're talking about something the size of a bathroom being there for 23 hours. What does that do to an individual? I'm sure there's a level of significant trauma that one experiences essentially being caged in a bathroom size space for literally the full day.
Absolutely. So for the Pennsylvania Institutional Law Project for decades has been fighting for humane conditions for people who are incarcerated. Solitary confinement, we know, has a devastating effect on people's mental and physical health. On top of that, many people who are incarcerated already suffer from mental illness and serious mental illness. So solitary confinement and these intense lockdown conditions just exacerbate it. So unfortunately, there was a suicide in the Philadelphia prisons about a month ago. And the reports we received through our hotline was that that person struggled with being in such a small space for hours and hours upon time, for months. We were talking about since the pandemic started back in March, prisons have been using this method of trying to deal with coronavirus. Our position is you can do that in ways that are more humane.
What are some of those ways? I mean, you know, it's one thing to say, look, we've got to get them out of these spaces into a different environment. Has your organization and others thought about what some of those solutions are? And if so, how do we advocate, especially for those who have family members who are incarcerated? How do we advocate for better quality of life?
Yeah, first thing is regular and ongoing testing of both incarcerated people and staff. You identify the problem, address it, stop the spread.
Okay.
2, you can use the core cohorts. So you are going to release people in certain groups. You still have to use social distancing, but you can do it in ways that you use cohorts of smaller groups, but large enough where you can still release people out in a safe manner. And then, of course, another piece, which is if you can't do that, then you may need to look at how can you reduce the population of your prison so that you have enough space in order to ensure humane conditions.
You know, it's interesting. I think about Senate Bill 942, which talks about lifers who have been in place and have now surpassed a certain amount of years, you know, 55, 65, where the levels of cases of recidivism, you know, have gone down. I mean, you're addressing the issue where an individual is so less likely to create more additional crime that it's better for us to release them than to keep them in the space and allocate, whether it be Medicaid or some of these other resources, and just keeping and housing them alone. Is that something that the public should be fighting for as we talk about, you know, the ongoing legislative season? What are some of the things that we as community members also need to demand from state reps and state senators to ensure, you know, that our state is looking at this in a really proactive way?
So the Pennsylvania Institutional Law Project focuses on providing civil legal aid.
Okay.
But overall, I think the public should stay well informed on what criminal justice reforms there are. There are many of our colleagues who are working on these issues along with us. I encourage every person to educate themselves on each bill. As an organization, our focus has been on the civil end, which of course is affected by what happens in the criminal justice system.
So if you can, really quickly, for those who may not understand that difference, can you talk about the difference of, you know, the civil focus of the organization versus others who are advocating and lobbying and legislation?
Sure. So our focus is the civil and constitutional rights of people who are incarcerated. But what that means is you are entitled, if you're incarcerated, to have safety from violence, have access to medical care, live in safe, sanitary, and humane conditions, and have access to basic necessary services. You should be allowed to practice your religion. You should have access to your lawyer. You should be able to have access to recreation and even outdoor exercise. These are all critical. On top of which, it's really important for us as a society, for people who are incarcerated, to have contact with their loved ones, their friends and families on the outside. That, of course, is going to help people when they re-enter society to have that connection with the community and to have been treated humanely so that they can rehabilitate and then come back and be full people of our society again.
So is there an increased cost in providing visitation. Some will argue, well, it's bad enough that they have to deal with correctional officers who are coming in and out and battling touch there as it relates to COVID and instances. But now bringing in family,
right?
Potentially there may be an issue. Or is it a challenge at all?
At the very beginning, one common thread and sort of devastating stories to hear was how people lost contact with families because visits were cut off. Many prisons did try to institute different types of visitation, whether it be phone calls or give people free phone calls or video visitation. So those are all efforts that are incredibly important. Now, hopefully after COVID, they will supplement visits and they will still allow people to come visit in person. There's nothing better than seeing your loved one in person. We all know that.
Absolutely.
But during COVID, we have to do what we have to do. Video visits are very important, and high quality video visits that don't cut off
right.
are even better. And that's how they should be done. And having free access to phone calls. Some people do use email to communicate with family. But those are ways that we think are important alternatives to the in-person visit.
Sue, what is it that you want to tell the broadcast audience? For the ones who are listening now, they may not have someone who's incarcerated. Although we all know potentially a family who may be impacted by an incarcerated family member. But for those who are listening to the situation, they understand the severity of it. What do you need us to know? What is it that we need to take home out of this conversation today and go into a plan of action with?
First, educate yourself. We hope you'll follow us on social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Watch our film that we made that features the voices of incarcerated people. They poignantly talk about the struggles they've had while they're living in prison with COVID-19. And then take action, whether that is contacting the prison administrators, contacting your elected officials, and also support the Pennsylvania Institutional Law Project. The cold reality is that we also appreciate financial donations. That's how we're able to file a lawsuit. That all costs money. But those are all different things you can do. Some of it's very low effort, and some of it is just incredibly important. So
PAILP is a C3?
Yes, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The website is www.pailp.org.
As you look at the current landscape, obviously there's a new administration, new opportunities to bring certain things to light at a state and federal level. What do you see as you vision cast for the organization as the priority points for this year in 2021?
We hope the new administration will bring about needed criminal justice reform, whether that is through prison reform, making sure that people who are incarcerated are treated humanely on all levels, regardless of what crime they may have committed, where they are located. That is what we are asking for. Overall, comprehensive criminal justice reform is really necessary to address the issue of mass incarceration, which, as I'm sure you well know, affects Latinx people at a far greater rate than others.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sue, you are amazing.
Thank you so much for talking about this issue.
No, it's really important. I appreciate your leadership on this and the good folk over at PAILP. As you know, this is family for you. So consider this home. However, we can continue to support you and the great work that the organization is doing. We will.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And so we have heard from Sue, Ming, about not just COVID, but the conditions of our family members who are incarcerated. Is this a sexy topic? No. Every show is not going to have sexy topics. Is this a necessary topic? Absolutely. We can't continue to scream at the screen or wait until an elected official comes into the neighborhood for a town hall meeting, and then this is the only time that we bring these issues up. It's important, especially in this year, that we become very proactive about change, that we're focusing on how we can make change and making sure that it happens now. This is the perfect time politically for change to happen when an incoming administration is present and midterm election time and re-election. Okay, so those are the 3 points by which you want to engage and push and drive home your points to make sure that you meet the agenda that you are looking for. We're going to make sure that we post Su Ming's project, PAILP, the documentary, which we've already highlighted in the special presentation and broadcast. We're going to bring that back because I think it's really important that we all share and hear the voices of those who have experienced some trauma inside of these institutions, who are still dealing with issues of COVID and quality of life. There's nothing more tragic than being locked in solitary confinement when you haven't done anything to be placed in solitary confinement 23 hours a day in a cell the size of a bathroom, not to mention not being able to talk to family, regardless of what some of us may feel about family. Sometimes we still have the option. And so for those who don't have the option to talk to anyone they want at any point, it's important that those family members who are desirous to engage with their family who are incarcerated, at the very least, have the chance to do so, to encourage those who are incarcerated. Is so important for mental health as well as physical health. Please make this an issue in the circles that you travel in, and make sure that PAILP is one of your favorite accounts or favored accounts on social media. And again, we'll make sure that we post all of those on our social media pages. I am excited about the EKGs for this show. My brother, Doug Reed, you know him very well from Black Men Heal, and he's the CEO and founder of Synergy Reform, a great organization who's doing tremendous work as it relates to criminal justice reform. He is a leader, a trailblazer. This brother has a heart of gold and is committed to change. I'm always excited to have him with us. And Kyndal Chase, you hear the name all the time. Well, you know, who is Kyndal? It's almost like certain shows. I remember being on other shows and they would ask, well, who's this person and who's that person? Because they're mentioned but never seen. She's always behind the scenes making things happen. Her firm, Chase Goldsberry and Associates, is a long time partner here at Heart City, handling talent booking, engagement, show development, and more. She is a juggernaut in her own right, and we are excited to bring her on the other side of the camera to have dialogue with us today for the EKG. And so, Kyndal,
hey,
Doug, what it is. How are y'all doing, man? Welcome home. Well, welcome back home. Y'all are family now.
Yeah.
Bridge in the couch here. Then just come on in and do what you got to do.
Listen, I got the pictures of me from high school behind me.
Oh, no. Zoom in on those. We want to see that. Bring it. Hey, Doug, we got something here.
Yeah, I see.
She had never told us that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Hey, Doug,
I am definitely home. I am definitely home.
God, yes.
home is where the heart is. Home is
That's
where the heart
right.
is. Hey, Doug, you're doing
Yes,
some
sir.
great things, bro. King's Corner is major.
Oh my
It's major,
God.
bro.
It's taking off in that virtual free space, man.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised in guys visiting that space that have a lot on their minds and they just want to get it out. I mean,
I gotta have some conversation. I gotta have some conversation. And that's important because, you know, for what it's worth, everybody thinks that men have, like, we just got Teflon. We don't have to worry about an issue. We just go in the man cave, watch the Eagles. By the time the game is done and the time you take out the trash, you should be healed, and we'll keep moving from there. That's not the case, bro. So what you're doing is so crucial for all men of all walks of life, man. And I honor you and the great team that you have there handling King's Corner.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks a lot, man. And the time is now. It's time for us as a people to stand up and actually recognize the things that we feel, recognize our feelings. So I appreciate you just having me on the show.
Hey, we appreciate you. Are both of you ready for the EKGs?
Yes, sir.
Ready?
Let's go.
Have it.
This is the EKG, the part of the show where we place America front and center on the monitors of the American people. We will look for irregularities in the heartbeat, offer solutions on the issues we find in order to make America healthy once again. So fire up the machine. Let's start the EKG.
Today's EKGs are brought to you by Discovery CBD products. Make sure you check them out at Discovery, DASHURI.com. Our first story is an interesting one. This has made national headlines already. Many of you have seen the video. I'm not even going to play this video because I think we have to begin to sensitize ourselves to trauma that exists. I mean, at this point, whether it's TMZ, World Star Hip Hop, the news, they play it over and over again to the point where we don't even care anymore. We're just watching it. It means nothing to us, in the grand scheme of our emotional state. I think we got to reverse that in 2021. So we will not play the video. However, here's the story. Rochester police handcuffed and pepper sprayed a 9-year-old girl. This is what the body cam footage has shown. Many of you have, watched the videos. You've seen this video over and over again. It began around 3:20 p.m. Friday when police responded to a family trouble call. Rochester Deputy Police Chief Andre Anderson said at Sunday's news conference, look, there's a 9-year-old girl who has not been identified. They said she was suicidal. She indicated she wanted to kill herself and she wanted to kill her mom. When officers tried to secure her, the distressed girl ran away. The video shows an officer running after the girl along a snowy street. Once he catches up to her, he asks, "What's going on? How can I help?" The girl's mother then arrives, argues with the daughter, causing her to grow more upset. With 2 officers restraining each of the girl's hands, videos showed she slides to the street, thrashing, kicking at the police as she pleads to see her father. Officers then handcuff her, try to force her into the back of a police cruiser. According to Anderson, they were trying to transport her to a hospital, but the girl continued to scream, resisting going inside the car. At one point, she says, "Stop, you're hurting me." She also demands again to see her father. "I don't care what you demand," one officer says in the video. "You're acting like a child." She responds, "I am a child." Minutes later, the video shows the officer pepper spraying the 9-year-old. I mean, there's so much in that story alone. We could make that one EKG for the whole day. I'm going to shut up because my stuff that I'm getting ready to say is not clinically.
Chase Goldsberry and Associates with Malik.
No. All right, full disclosure. I wasn't going to be that version. No,
Okay.
I was saying the expertise in the room.
Okay.
I appreciate you covering me though. I didn't want to end up on CNN today. But I mean, honestly, there's so much there. The young lady says, "I am a child. I'm not. I am a kid." She asked to see her father twice, to the point where an officer says, "I don't care what you demand." I mean, now clearly, if she's asking to see dad, there might be an opportunity, and we don't know the details yet, but there might be an opportunity to bring dad and de-escalate some of this. There's another element going on where, the mother catches up to the incident and more energy is created here, right? I mean, there's a lot. And so the knee-jerk reaction, Black Twitter, I don't know if there's a Black Facebook, a Black Twitter, Black Clubhouse. Everybody jumped on this thing and said, we got to tear this officer out the frame. I need everybody in Rochester fired immediately. Go to community policing. I'm not a part of that ministry. Right?
Yeah.
There's some nuance in here. Now, Doug, you served on the force. You understand this from a law enforcement perspective so much more than I do. When you see this story, what are some of the glaring points that come out in the story?
Well, I mean, I was in a correctional setting. So the first thing that comes to mind is de-escalate the situation. I mean, that was one. The girl said, I'm a child. Let's take accountability that she's a child.
Yeah.
Then let's take accountability that she's in the car. So in a correctional setting, law enforcement, we're always talking about control and contain.
Yeah.
She's in the car. Shut the door. Shut the door. I mean, okay, she's, screaming or whatever, but she'll get tired. But shut the door. Because at this point, she's posing no threat to no one.
Posing no threat.
Suicidal, whatever, what they said, but, there's no weapon. There's nothing. She's not beating her head against the windows or anything. I just stand in, I'm bewildered. Why would you pepper spray her?
Yeah.
What did that solve?
I'm lost on that.
This is an issue of control.
Okay.
This is not an issue of anything but I am an authority.
Yes.
Do what I say. I am in control. And when you don't, I'm going to make you. Because even in the mental health setting, everything Doug just laid out is exactly what they're mandated to do.
Okay.
She's no longer a harm to herself. Once she was handcuffed and in that car, let her scream her little tail off till she falls asleep. While they were busy restraining both of her hands, one of them should have probably been taking mom aside and saying, you're not helping the situation. I need you to come over here. The same way they separate two irate accident people, and say, no, we don't want you arguing on the side of the road. You go over there and you go over there. It's the same thing. This is control. So until authority figures understand that authority does not equate to control, we will continue to have this, because quite frankly, that could have been a Black officer that still required the same control, and we would still be trying to figure this out. This is not, let me rephrase this. This is an issue of race. This is an issue of how we perceive our young people. Because if that had been a little blonde-haired girl with blue eyes, she wouldn't have been pepper sprayed. Now, she might have been tossed in the back of that car, but she wouldn't have been pepper sprayed. So this is an issue of race, but this is more an issue of control. Authority figures do not have to have control over us. I can't control you. You can't control me. Is that something?
What's interesting, as you brought that point out, I thought about Dylan Roof. And so on its face, this story does not correlate to the similar details that occurred with Dylan Roof. But when we talk about the treatment of individuals, where you're finished murdering individuals in church, but because you're hungry, let's get you let's get you a little Burger King. Let's take care of you. Versus, to your points, potential de-escalation efforts that could have been done outside of pepper spraying. Also, to both of you, she's in the car already. Close the door. It's not like she can get through the plexiglass and create. She's in and she's handcuffed, right? And so, control, to your point, Kyndal, is a big issue. Doug, will we ever be able to manage the desire for control? Here's a shiny badge. Here's a gun. I get to do some things that others can't because of the code that I have now subscribed to. How do we manage that desire to be and remain in control? And also considering not just in not this case specifically, but that there's high tension anyway for individuals who are serving with the badge. So they may have come to this incident engaged with something else, and there's residue from that tensions, scenario down here.
It's a mindset. It's definitely a mindset. Kyndal said it's the authority. We could get deep with that. It's being oppressed, them oppressing something that they think they have authority over. And that's being a person, the power. There's a lot of power that people get when they're in law enforcement or the CEO of an organization. Don't let the power go to your head. Even in that situation, I'll tell you something. My mom used to say, somebody has to be the adult. Yeah. I mean, you didn't even have to be a police officer. You just had to be the adult. Where was the mediator? Where was somebody to step in and say, all tensions were high, voices were high. Let's just bring it down. Why not just try to talk to her? But once again, we talk about criminal justice reform and policing. All that's got to come up. There's got to be accountabilities for officers, in whatever field of law enforcement that they are. It's got to be accountability. These kind of officers, or maybe they need help. We talk about the mental health aspect. Maybe they need help, some mediation or some therapy where we find out what the underlying issues are, or why you're coming to work so upset. Why are you coming where everything that happens, you're jumping off the handle? There's underlying issues with that.
So as you were talking, you said, don't let it go to your head. And being the old school hip hop guy that I am, I just heard the record. Right? Here we go. Look, hey, Doug, you saw the groove she was making, like, with a little lean. All right, I see. Yeah. Look at somebody. All right, see, Doug, that's what happens when Chase Goldsberry and Associates join us. We get a little. So we're going to make sure that we post that on our social media pages, please. Share that with those you love. Let's have conversations. And then there's some family dynamic in that space somewhere. There's a reason why that 9-year-old was asking for her father. And not saying that the father is right and the mother's wrong. We're not in that. What we're saying is, if there are opportunities to kind of address some of those things, let's do that before we bring in those with the badge, because they're there to deal with it sometimes in a very harsh way. They're not going to sit down with you at family dinner and have a long conversation. They want to get the job done and get back to their situations as well. So we'll post it. Please continue to talk about that. This one here, we love the challenging stories, but we also love some of these amazing stories in the space. South Carolina principal takes a night job at Walmart to support struggling students. He said, look, I know that my students will not always be in poverty. I know that because that's what we are. Henry Darby, who is a North Charleston High School principal. It's clear from all of the accounts that he goes above and beyond for his students, taking on this second job. Here it is, stocking shelves at a Walmart stores during the overnight hours, with every paycheck earned going to his students. Now, about the attention, because he made national news today, reported this. He said, look, I'm not used to this attention. I don't think that I've done anything worthy of distinction to warrant the attention. Now, his efforts are particularly important because 90% of the student body live under the poverty line. He said, I get a little emotional because when you got children, sleeping under a bridge, or a former student and her child sleeping in a car, when you go to a parent's house because there's problems, you knock on the door and there's a mattress on the floor with no curtains. And these people I just wasn't going to say no. And at this age, we don't ask for money. We just don't. We go ahead and we just do what we need to do. Henry is my man right now. And so for me, it brought me back to my mother. I got really emotional thinking about my mother, 33-year teacher in the school district. She's retired now. God bless her for that and the work that she put in. But I remember, the students that she helped. You know, back then students could literally come to the house. So our living room, sometimes she would take a whole class and have a class sleeping in the living room. Like it was like baby Linvilla Orchards. Like we just gonna stay over, or Fellowship Farm, if y'all remember that. Like we're just gonna have a hangout at Mrs. Boyd's house. And I remember, you know, growing up, like, wow, no one will ever really know these stories, what's happening in my house. But 30 years later, you know, 20 years later, these students are seeing my mom on the street and they're like, yo, Miss Boyd. And it's guys like Henry, you know, and my mother and countless other teachers who are making sacrifices day after day. But Walmart, Kyndal, I'm scratching my head on that because, you know, as I get older, I kind of like my sleep. We don't call it beauty rest because I'm still cracking mirrors over here. I mean, an overnight shift.
It's not easy.
As a school administrator?
Listen, y'all already know, both of you guys have worked with me professionally. Don't call me after 9 because I'm delirious. And if Brandon is up, and y'all know Brandon might be up because that's the one in my house, he on his own after 9. So the sacrifice that this man is making, but I think he's absolutely correct when he says that he doesn't feel like it's warranted because people, you know, what's the saying? Friends of a feather flock together. You flock with people of like-minded hearts. So his circle is probably filled with people that would do the exact same thing and make those same kind of circles. He's rolling with people like your mom or people like the teachers that I had. Remember, like, oh gosh, it's that day I forgot my purse and I need that special thing to make sure I don't go home with things on my clothes and people don't tease me. And you knew what teacher to go to. You know, you knew what NTA to go to when you didn't have lunch money, but you were starving. You knew all those things. And we get a lot of negativity that hits our news feed, but these are truly our reality. These are just as much of our realities as these crazy stories that we're being fed on a regular basis. They just don't hit the national news. So I applaud this gentleman. And if Walmart is smart, they make it so this man doesn't have to show up for that midnight shift. And they just stock his school store with the stuff they need and make a big impact. Because when you live down south, this is the big difference, because, you know, now I'm a Southern girl now, right? I'm a Southern girl now. We don't have a lot of small stores.
Right.
Big box stores are everywhere. I can count on this hand, 5 minutes each direction, how many Walmarts I can hit. You know, as I grocery shop and school supply shop. We don't have that distinction. So there's no ShopRite and then still go to Target to get your school supplies. That we all go to Walmart. Wally World, here we come. So, you know, they really do have a chance to be change makers in the community, even though they're big box. But either way, this principal, he's gonna make it happen for his kids. Those his babies.
Hey, Doug, superheroes live among us. His first name is Henry, brother.
Hey, it's amazing. But you know what? I did the same thing. I got emotional. Just watching. And even what you said, you know, I thought about my mother just passed. Her birthday was just on the 31st. And just that being a servant, she was always helping somebody. And that's it. He's from that community. But you know what I seen though?
What's that?
The level of peace with him.
Indeed.
Oh my goodness. Just a level of peace and being a servant. Like, you know, they ask him, like, how do you do it? You only getting 2 hours of sleep.
Come on, man. Come on.
You know, so he's just feeding off that energy just to provide for those kids. He's a part of that community. He stepped up in that community. He feels their pain. And when you're like that, you know, that adrenaline gets to kick in and you will do almost anything. But the level of peace that he had on him, and Walmart did the smart thing. They gave him $50,000 to his high school. They did. You know, they did. So they had to step it up. But going back, these are the things, and we talking about Black History Month superheroes.
Right.
He exemplifies that superhero. Indeed. But he remained humble. And I mean, for me, it was just the peace that I seen him operating on, and which a peace that we always seek. You know.
Listen, you're no exception to that as well, brother. Like watching you and the way you grind, the way the guys Black grind. It's the stuff that never makes the radar.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and some of the challenging portions of that is, you know, they'll say, well, Doug, you know, all I see is you just talking on Sunday. And I'm like, it's so much from Monday, probably to Sunday right before you go on the Black Media, you know, dealing with on a daily basis, man. And so shout out to you. Shout out to this brother Henry and the countless other superheroes who are doing tremendous work in our community, whether it's recognized or not. Because of them, we're in a much better space. And so please, we're going to share that article. Do us a favor, share the article. Just write a letter or call the school.
Yes.
And just say, listen, we heard the story. I just want to say thank you to this principal. You know, is there a way to cash app y'all $5 or something like that to make sure? I mean, guys, this isn't going to hurt us. That's, you know, that's not even a grande at Starbucks nowadays. I don't even think that's hash browns, a coffee, and a little bacon and egg sandwich at Mickey D's. But it's something that lets this brother know that not only they're not just capitalizing off of the national story, but because he's being expanded in the space in the broadcast arena, we're hearing it. And we're going to step up and be able to do something about it. We're also going to make a call down to the school as well. And so if we get any information around ways to engage, we'll make sure that we post it on our social media also. I'm going to go to our last story. This one here, I've been following these stories all week long. QAnon. You've heard that name. It basically represents a extremist organization, very active in the issues at the Capitol. This South Carolina mom says she was stunned by Biden's inauguration. I mean, you know, I can't believe that Biden was inaugurated. How, Karen? He won the election. That's what happens when people win elections. They get inaugurated afterwards and go into office. And so she said, look, I'm out. I've escaped QAnon. Her name is Ashley Vanderbilt. She's now been touring the media circuit. CNN, quite frankly, has basically sent her around their media circle. She said, look, her 4-year-old daughter, Emerson, knew something was wrong with her mom. This is Ashley's words direct. That's a whole story for another day. But Ashley did say I wasn't 100% there like I should have been. After November's election, she spent time on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, becoming indoctrinated into the world of QAnon. By an inauguration day, she was convinced that if then President-elect Joe Biden took office, the United States will literally turn into a communist country. She was terrified. She would have to go into hiding with her daughter. Here's something crucial that I need everyone to understand. Here's her own words. I've always been someone that you just tell me what to do and I do it. I grew up being told we were Republicans, so I've always been that straight red ticket. She doesn't watch the news. What have we heard for the last 4 or 5 years? Don't watch the news. Fake news. She's 27 years old and an avid user of TikTok. Kyndal, I mean,
I'm sorry. I would fix my face.
yeah, because I was triggered. This morning I called you.
You did.
We got to add because, you know, I don't want us, and I know the Black liberal organization is going to suspend my black card on this one, but
I'll get it back.
Please file the appeal. I mean, here's the thing. Thank you, my brother. You know, we're in the same space. We drink some Kool-Aid sometime too. And whether it be political or the like, we fall into these spaces where we're not thinking things all the way through. We're just riding with it because that's what we've been told. That's how it's supposed to go and the like. And then we get mad when things don't change. For us, we get book bags, free haircuts, and we go right back to the same damn thing over and over again. I apologize to all of the electeds who do the book bags and haircuts. I know that's not your only thing, but we all know that taking care of seniors at the dinner gets votes. We all know that the book bag with your name on it and re-elect me so I can set us free is the thing we like to do. Haircuts for the kids, and so we all have this problem of just riding for the sake of riding.
Yeah.
I'm mad, Kyndal, because CNN was like trashing everybody who ever showed up at the Capitol, anybody that was involved in QAnon. They spent months destroying this organization, and now they're celebrating or taking a Caucasian young woman with child. That's one of the softest ways to message. Let's be real. Like, all right, so let's go behind the veil of broadcasting, and we're going to now do a special on her, on how she was duped. I'm not buying it. Because if you and I got an email that said we're riding on the Capitol today, you and I both will be like, yo, I got the show on Wednesday. Like, I'm not trying to do jail time. You know how they treat us once we hit Baltimore 95, go through the tunnel. I'm not doing it. I mean, you make a conscious decision to ride on the Capitol. You make a conscious decision to keep this kind of information around you. Am I right, or am I just ranting here?
So I'm sorry. There's one part that I just have to say out loud.
Oh Lord.
She looks at TikTok. Okay. That's where she gets her news. People, TikTok, Facebook, IG, Reddit. I could go on. Clubhouse. I'm gonna throw you out there. You the newbie on the front. Clubhouse.
Wait. You mean Clubhouse is not the official lane of the new news channel?
No, it's not. And I need everyone. I Dr. Mo. We good friends with Dr. Mo, right? Yeah. Dr. Mo keeps putting out the information, and she says, "Do your research. Make your own decision." Come on. Like maybe this is the result of No Child Left Behind, because now we just like, this is the answers to the test. You passed the test.
Yes.
You don't have to think. Did you memorize? Did you get the sight words together? You don't need to know how to phonetically sound it out. Did you get the sight word together and pass the test? So she passed the test. But now she's realizing she's failing at life because her daughter hasn't been taught how to pass the test yet, right? So her daughter still has these like, wait, mommy, that looks weird. This is not
a 4-year-old saying mommy's off her rocker right
mommy,
now.
like
4-year-old.
Like, listen.
Come
in
on.
Between toxic stuff and Caillou, she's like, listen, something ain't right.
You know Caillou ain't got nothing to do with this. Why you bring in Caillou now?
But the baby is saying it like, mommy,
Yeah.
Get it together. But I think that's the problem. Too many of us, and you're right, it's not just one side or the other. Now, as far as CNN, we know what the problem is. What's going to be the new storyline? And we have to realize that we keep biting these storylines. Whether it's us feeding into everybody is crazy that's on the red side, they're all horrible people, I'm going to unfriend you. Like, we have to stop being extremists.
Yeah, we really do. And the bulk of the world is in the center. And I want people to understand that. If you understand politics and you understand where we are in society, we do have the extreme. So if you look at it, the circle kind of goes like this. It goes in and around, right? We've seen that symbol with some fraternity organizations, right? But these points right here represent the extremes. They're actually closer to each other than many believe and many understand. If you really study them, they act very similar in nature, have similar behavioral patterns. It's as you go around this circle, those are the folk. That's the bulk of the Americas, right? With very few points and all those kind of things, much further apart in ideology. Doug, to Kyndal's point, Blue's Clues can have clues, but this mom didn't have a clue. It took a 4-year-old to say, Mom, what in the world is going on? My issue, Doug, if that was you and I,
Yeah.
Black Republicans in the space with QAnon, Don Lemon, Chris Cuomo would have tore us out the frame. We would have never got a word in. They would have trashed us. How could you? I mean, what's wrong with you? You need help. They went down the list of smart aleck things to say, but because she came on with the 4-year-old daughter, it's, my God, it was President Trump. And when he said, do that, I just did it. It wasn't me. Like, come on. God, what's up, man?
You know, the only thing that came to mind, you know, I served in the military and I was a drill sergeant.
Yeah.
And we've seen this happen across these last 4 years. Brainwash. Just totally brainwashed. You know, you're constantly being hyped up to believe something. You've been fed information. Your people that you so-called trust is giving you information. You know, fake news. Don't watch the news. It's a steal. They rigged it. You constantly hear repetitive things over and over and over again, and she got brainwashed. Never did the research, always looked at, and same thing going back to Kyndal. We got to, even as a people, we got to stop just reading the headlines. Do your research, find out the good, the bad, the indifferent, and then a rational mind will make a rational decision.
You're right.
And it doesn't get any easier than that, but of course, with social media, the World Wide Web, we always want the quick fix. We want the quick answers. I mean, and real talk, Malik, this is why I appreciate your show so much, is the fact that you go down and Kyndal, you go down and you search for those ordinary people to get those responses, and nothing but the truth comes out, whether it's agreement or disagreement. Now your audience gets a true feel about what's going on. There's nothing doctored there, you know what I mean? So even going with the red and the blue, you guys provided both sides and told the people, you make the rational decision. We're not going to tell you, but you do. And that's what happened. And of course, if she was Black, first of all, it wouldn't have been no kumbaya. And I mean, the thing that got me, I think they were walking on a beach or something.
They're walking on a beach, Doug. Come on, you know the setup.
I mean, that's why I say you got to look at the whole situation. We're going to play it like this now.
Listen, they'd have put me and you at the basketball court at 16th and Susquehanna with cop cars whizzing past, but she gets to walk Myrtle Beach chilling. Get out of here, man. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it.
With the footprints behind you to demonstrate that.
Like the Lord,
yes.
Come on.
You see, that's when the Lord had me in His hands. That's
yes.
Get out of here.
No.
I'm not buying it.
But this is the beginning of our EKG segment to the end of our EKG segment, the extremes. So this baby is 9 years old, and she's not even given the ability to be a 9-year-old that has a challenging moment and needs help.
Yeah.
Or we're going to coddle a grown woman that's bringing life into this world and set her up. I mean, let's even talk about the pictures. We got this baby and they're blasting her traumatic experience all over the world for people and for her to continue to relive constantly. Well, we got the chick that probably should have been possibly
come on
and you know, headed off to some place for some therapy
on her head.
Right. She's got the halo glow and you know, so we have to start to accept that, like, the images aren't the reality.
And this is why, broadcast audience, why we do this show. You know, we recognize that mainstream corporations aren't always going to buy into this because they enjoy the extreme part too, because the extreme brings tons of views because they want to see us fight. They want Doug to have an extreme position and me to yell at Doug and Doug yell at me. We ain't about that, because when you're done yelling and you get that little stipend check for being on the show and all that kind of nonsense, at the end of the day, there's no change. It happens. And then the news cycle shifts to something else, and we're still in poverty, and we're still lacking funding, and we're still dealing with all these issues. No, we're focused on solutions. And so here is a solution. Stop watching the setups. I am picking on CNN here. Stop watching the setup. That was a perfect setup for you to now be okay with middle America and be okay with those who were extreme. They're like, no, it's okay. We'll bring you in, and we'll make it soft target entrance for those who are now going to defect from the movement, but never change their mindset because they still got stuff that they need to talk to some therapists about. That's a story for another day. Listen, I gotta go. I love you both. Thank you so much for joining the EKGs with us. Doug, tell the broadcast audience how they can get in touch with you and the great work you're doing.
I'm all over social media. Douglas McNeil Reed, social media. Follow me at Center Reform on Instagram and Facebook. Black Men Heal, King's Corner. I'm just over here trying to be a positive impact. So I'm just a servant, man. I really appreciate you guys, and thank you.
You're a great servant, brother. I love you and I appreciate you. Kyndal, let them know how to get in touch with you and the empire you're building.
So we're branching out. We're gonna stretch the reach beyond Heart City, so they can always reach me at Goldsberry Chase. I'm the same on Facebook and IG. Heck, go ahead and inbox Heart City TV. I'm watching that thread too. Why not? Yeah. But I'm always around. I'm a community member. I'm always here. And so you can definitely reach out to me. I'm here to, make sure that the image matches the reality for our community people. So that's my goal.
What she does. She is an expert at it. We have worked in the trenches for years. And so for those who are thinking this is something new, Lord knows the track record is it's over by the Platte, around the corner, going down Market Street, down to DC and beyond. We love and honor you as well. Thank you for the great work you do for the community.
Gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
So we are now covered by the great thought, advice, and wisdom from Doug Reed, amazing leader in the space, and Kyndal Chase as well, equally amazing in her leadership. I'm excited because my next guest is he is a true brother and friend. The way we came together, and what's interesting is we knew of each other and had some interaction prior to some transitions in his life, and we weren't necessarily that close. We actually had a mutual friend that brought us together towards some of the later stages, and God stepped in an amazing way. You're going to hear about that story. And through that story, we bonded. Iron truly sharpens iron. I've learned so much from him and his wisdom. And I am excited that he is here to share that wisdom with you. Seth Williams, former Philadelphia district attorney, now criminal justice reform advocate and consultant. He's up next right after our Black History Fact. I'm excited about bringing back the Black History Facts. We heard from so many of you, where are the Black History Facts? Where are the Song of the Weeks? Trust me, we're bringing them back, but we also want to deal with the issues. And so we want to give as much time as possible to the issues of the day. Here is our Black History Fact of the day. Booker T. Washington. Booker was born a slave in Virginia in 1856. Early in his life, he developed a thirst for reading and learning. After attending elementary school for African-American children, Booker walked 500 miles to enroll in Hampton Institute, one of the few Black high schools in the South. Following his graduation from Hampton, he taught elementary school in his hometown. In 1880, General Armstrong invited him to return to teach at Hampton. 1 year later, Armstrong nominated Washington to head a new school in Tuskegee, Alabama, for the training of Black teachers, farmers, and skilled workers. Washington designed, developed, and guided the Tuskegee Institute. It became a powerhouse of African-American education and political influence in the United States. He used the Hampton Institute with this emphasis on agricultural and industrial training as his model. Now, Booker argued that African Americans must concentrate on educating themselves, learning useful trades, and investing in their own businesses. Hard work, economic progress, merit, he believed, would prove to whites the values of blacks and the value of black in the American economy. Now, Washington believed that his vision for black people would eventually lead to equal political and civil rights. In the meantime, he advised blacks to put aside the immediate demands for voting and ending racial segregation. In his famous address in the 1895 Cotton States and International Exposition in Atlanta, Georgia, Washington accepted the reality of racial segregation. He insisted, however, that African Americans be included in the economic progress of the South. He declared to an all-white audience, in all things social, we can be as separate as the fingers, yet one as the hand in all things essential to mutual progress. Washington considered himself a bridge between the races. However, other black leaders criticized him for tolerating racial segregation at a time of increasing anti-black violence and discrimination. Now, Washington publicly did speak out against the evils of segregation and lynching and discrimination in voting. He secretly participated in lawsuits involving voter registration tests, exclusion of blacks from juries, and unequal railroad facilities. Booker T. Washington was laid to rest in 1915. Our hearts go out to the life and legacy of Booker T. Washington. You can find this and many other Black history facts on our YouTube channel. Please share this Black history fact with those you love. I am going to a quick break. On the other side, we have Seth Williams, the former district attorney of Philadelphia, now criminal justice reform advocate and consultant. You'll hear his story, his challenges, and the lessons learned. You're watching Heart City.
The Philadelphia Opportunities Industrialization Center is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide education, training, and employment services to assist the unemployed, underemployed, homeless, and disadvantaged youth and adults. Visit philaoic.org to learn how OIC can help you achieve self-sufficiency and empowerment through education, training, job placement, and through technology access and economic development. For a better tomorrow, call Philadelphia OIC.
We're back. You're watching Heart City TV. This interview is very important to me because it's been a long time coming, something that Seth and I both talked about during some pretty interesting spaces. Many nights where we shared correspondence. I had the opportunity to hear his heart while many judged, experienced whatever feelings and emotions that they felt. But I saw his journey and I saw his transformation. And rather than just blindly vouch for him, and it's something that he's not even asking for, I am excited that this platform is an opportunity for him to have conversation with us. To talk about his experience and the amazing life lessons learned in this space. Again, he is without sin, cast the first stone. And rather than judge our folk, there are some opportunities that we all have to learn from our mistakes, to grow from them, and bring back those gems, those diamonds, back to our community to make it a better place. This brother, I know, is committed to doing just that. Seth, it's an honor, man, to have you on Heart City. Welcome home, my brother. It's good to see you.
Well, I can't thank you enough, Brother Malik. First, I was just so engaged and enthralled with the conversation you were having with Doug and Kyndal. I just wanted to jump in because I was really feeling a lot of that. And I experienced a lot of that miseducation while I was away. Okay. But again, I'm just very thankful to have this opportunity to be here with you. I listened to your intro. I thought it was very poignant to have the transition from Booker T. Washington to OIC, because that's exactly what he was talking about. If we're going to break the cycle of unemployment, underemployment, mass incarceration was through jobs. And that's really what I learned while I was away. But I just wanted to first, just as you've given me this opportunity, to everyone that's watching and listening, I just wanted from the bottom of my heart to say, I have pinned on my Twitter page, right? To those I wronged or let down, I ask for your forgiveness. For those I may have helped, I wish I could have done more. And for the many I neglected to help, I'm truly sorry. To those who helped me, I'm very grateful. And I just hope that my experience, my life's journey, the ups and downs, hopefully can be a beacon of hope to some, a warning for others, and that we can just learn from each other, which I had to learn while I was away, but hopefully it can be a lesson.
Yeah.
And with that, I'll pass.
Listen, let's talk about it. Let's get right into this.
Sure.
There are many who inboxed me and said, listen, don't hold back on Seth, go in. And we get all that all the time from guests who may be high profile, and there's lots of things to say. I believe that there's diamonds out of that pressure.
Sure.
Those kind of scenarios that get created. But let's talk about it. I mean, you were the district attorney for the city of Philadelphia, a very meteoric rise in the space, and heralded as one of our major future leaders. You were convicted and spent time in incarceration. Talk about that journey. I mean, the point by which you realized, hey, look, this isn't going to go the way that I want it per se, and I'm going to now have to transition. What was that moment like for you? Well,
it was a wonderful opportunity, and I was humbled to serve as the 24th district attorney of Philadelphia. In many ways, more important to this story, I was the first African-American district attorney in the history of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I had worked as a prosecutor, as a criminal defense attorney, 19 years in the United States Army. I've been a civil attorney with some great law firms. I was the inspector general. So it was a great honor to serve. And as a result of bad judgment, as a result of not reporting gifts that I had received, which I should have done, and some gifts I shouldn't have accepted, because even though there was no quid pro quo, I didn't do anything for them, they just lent themselves to the appearance of impropriety. And I had to come to recognize that as the DA, unlike being a state senator or a city councilman or whatever, just the appearance of impropriety in the criminal justice system in many ways erodes people's trust and faith in it. And so I was amazed and honored to be elected in 2010. I tried to do all that I could to address systemic racism and systemic issues of inequity in the criminal justice system. We created all types of diversionary programs, but also used evidence-based, data-driven practices to reduce gun violence, to reduce homicides, and to give people second chances. And I'm very proud of the collaborative efforts I had with Commissioner Ramsey and Commissioner Ross, faith leaders, community organizations, and we did that. But at the same time, I recognized I was ready strategically and operationally to serve as the district attorney, to run a 600 employee office with a budget of $54 million. I wasn't ready emotionally. I wasn't ready emotionally to have two Blackberries, one that went off all day every time someone was shot, murdered, dismembered, raped, having to be rushed to the trauma center at Temple when Sergeant Robert Wilson III was shot in the head, multiple times, going to the hospital for those things, going to funerals for kids that were murdered, victims of gun violence, senseless gun violence, and then being asked to speak at the funeral. So I wasn't ready emotionally, having to supervise people that had been my friends. You know, and having been a child that lived in an orphanage, lived in foster care, being adopted, I had emotional issues of separation anxiety, wanting to feel oneness. It was difficult for me to manage all those things. And I numbed myself with too many martinis. I didn't deal with that stress in a healthy way. I ended up being indicted, as you mentioned. I went on trial, thought that we were going to win, you know, thought that I was going to be acquitted because I didn't have the mens rea, as we say in the criminal law, the intent to commit a crime. But I found myself indicted. I found myself on trial after more than a week of what I thought was everything going well for us. We had a bad day. We were given an offer from the feds to plead guilty to one count, a violation of the Travel Act, which I hadn't even knew what it was, what that meant, right?
Right.
And we entered a plea on the morning of June the 29th of 2017. I entered a plea of guilt. And I went from being driven to court by my security detail, being recognized as the DA. I was been told that I was going to have the entire summer to stay home and to get my affairs in order. But the judge saw differently and he revoked my bail. I promised my daughters I'd be home that day around lunch and I'd be with them for the summer before I went away.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that opportunity. I was handcuffed in court, taken immediately to my own. I was given an orange jumpsuit, right? Strip searched and put in my own solitary confinement cell where I remained for the first 152 days of the 60-month sentence that I got.
Wow.
And so that the immediacy of just being in the cell and then just trying to process all of that was a lot.
You know,
I'm just very thankful that, you know, I tell people I lost my reputation.
Yeah.
I lost my job being the elected DA. I lost my pension. My pension would have been $122,000 every year the rest of my life when I turned 55. I lost my house, my law license, liberty, time with my mother, my daughters, loved ones. But I learned that when God is all you have, God is all you need.
You know, it's interesting. You the tone by which you talk now, admittedly, is different than the tone that you had even as a district attorney.
Sure.
And many of us, and I don't care who you are, I'll be the first to put my hand up when things are going well, when we're in stride. We never think about that fall. We never think about, you know, the opportunity where things may change and find ourselves in a very different space. You know, you gave me a biblical representation of some things that you found yourself in alignment with while you were incarcerated. Talk about some of those alignment stories, those individuals in the Bible, as you begin to study during this time period and become enlightened yourself. What were some of those individuals, and how do you feel that you relate to those stories?
Well, I quickly learned that I was in prison. Like originally I was like, well, why am I here? Why is this always happening to me? Why did I get charged? Why did not that person? And I had to get through that sense of anger, right? And then I began to process it like I was in prison for no other reason. That is where I needed to be.
Do you ultimately feel that those charges were justified in the approach? Because some will argue, well, you know, he went after, you know, African American women, and that was some of the narrative that folk used in the press, and then now this is kind of you know, a impact point for him as well. Do you feel ultimately at that point like, hey, you know what, this is it, I'm here, I now have to move forward? Was that the space that you found yourself in?
Right. I recognize, you know, I was the first prosecutor in American history to prosecute the hierarchy of the Catholic Church for shielding pedophile priests.
Yeah.
And that played a role in some of the charges that were brought against me. I recognize that. I mean, I can split hairs.
Yeah.
It's of no moment. It's of no consequence now. You know, what I'm saying is that I had to recognize that I was in jail.
Yeah.
I had to be there, that it was essential step in my growth and shedding who I had been.
Wow.
Right? And I never would have grown the way that I hope and believe that I had if not for having been in solitary for 152 days. The Amnesty International, all these organizations say that putting people in a concrete and steel box for more than 10 days is deleterious to their mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was there for 152. And I learned so much through that experience. I know it could have broken me, and it's because of the glory of God that I wasn't broken. It's not because of anything about me. And so I just hope that I can be of some help at all. If it's just when I'm walking, I live in North Philly now. If I'm just walking on Oxford, if I could see one person just say, hey, have a great day, or see somebody help them shovel it, whatever.
Yeah.
But what I had to learn along the way was that, yes, originally the perspective I had was, why is all this happening to me? Right? And everybody said, you need to read the book of Job. And so in Job, as you know, Job lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he might have been without guilt in God's eyes, but he lost everything. And Job wanted to know, why me? Why me? Why me? And the punchline to that long book is God says, look, you came into the world with nothing. You're going to leave with nothing. Always praise the name of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And I recognized for years, and I was chased. I had to have a garage full of this lawnmower, this hedge clipper. I had a Rolex. I had this. I had that. When I was in prison for more than almost 3 years, everything that I needed was in a locker that was 2 feet wide, 3 feet high, and 1 foot deep.
Wow.
All the clothes, all the snacks and goodies, and my coffee.
Yeah.
All my books, everything was there. And that helped me put in perspective what's really necessary and what's not. And what's necessary is just the love of my friends and family.
Yeah.
I had to learn that. I had to go through that. But it's like, if you go to, my dad was an artist.
Okay.
He was my best friend. I'm somewhat ashamed of the fact, I share his name. My father was Rufus Williams. He was named for an uncle of his that was a runaway slave. So I always liked the name Rufus until first day of school, right? The first day in the schoolyard, Rufus Doofus is a heavy cross to bear, right?
I got to end up putting hands on you now.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So I feel a little bit ashamed and embarrassed that the first time I was really called Rufus Williams every day was when I was in prison. But what I had to really come to learn was, the perspective that I had, everything I had lost was terrible. That was just one perspective. Because one day, I was in prison and I was writing a letter to my daughters.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know what? I'm just too sad. I just can't. How am I going to live in prison for 60 months? So I said, let me just have some prayer time. And being a good Catholic boy, I pulled out my rosary.
Okay.
And I started saying some rote Hail Marys, Our Fathers. And I wanted God to tell me how I could get through this, to give me hope, encouragement, strength. After about 10 minutes of that, I said, you know what? I need to have some good old Baptist prayer up in here. My father was the son. So I'm the grandson of a Protestant minister. He was an AME minister.
Yeah.
So I started talking directly to God. God, I need you to be in my life, for the Holy Spirit to help me know that I can get through this. That I there's hope.
Yeah.
And I did that. Then you know what I said? after that, I said, I need to have some Quaker meeting up in here. And I was very thankful and grateful. My parents, humble people, middle-class folks from West Philly, Rufus and Imelda Williams. I was their only extravagance when they adopted me. And they sent me to Friend Central, a great Quaker school, okay?
Right.
So the Quakers believe that God speaks to all of us in silence, and that we don't need a rabbi or a bishop or an imam, that he speaks to all of us in silence. So I was sitting, and I was sitting on my bed, crisscross applesauce, as they call it, back when we called it Indian style.
Yeah.
And I'm in silence, and I hear at the door. I look over at the cell, was the one black CO in the shoe. I was in the hole for 5 months. He was Nigerian, and he was also a Baptist minister. He came to my cell and he said, Mr. Williams, did you kill anyone? I was like, no. Did Nelson Mandela kill anyone? I was like, no. Mr. Williams, you are a smart man. You are an educated man. God loves you. You will get through this. Have faith. Have hope. And he walked away.
Wow.
Everything he said to me in like 10, 15 seconds was what I've been praying for a half hour. So Malik, I learned quickly in prison, that as a young boy, as a young Catholic boy, I always wanted God to talk to me. I thought that meant a cloud would come in my window with an angel playing a harp.
Yeah.
And he would give me some message from on high. I had to learn in prison. God speaks to us every day.
Yes, he does.
Through other people.
Yes, he does.
Through other inmates. Through murderers.
Yeah.
My best friends, while I was in solitary, I would get 1 hour a day, Monday through Friday, where they would handcuff me and take me to my own cell, my own recreation area, caged in, cyclone fenced area. That was called rec.
Wow.
And that was the only time I could really talk to people through a fence. My closest, people that spoke to me the most were a contract killer named SK, right? A guy who'd been on death row for 14 years in Pennsylvania, who'd been in the cell next to me, who would talk to me through the vent.
Yeah.
Whose best friend and mentor had been Mumia Abu Jamal.
Wow.
So life was hitting me from all these different angles.
Yeah.
But I learned that God speaks to us through that CO. He began speaking to me in so many different ways. The very next day, Malik, I'm at rec. And a man whose face I'd seen when they walked me handcuffed through the hall, right? Everywhere I went, I had 2 COs. One had the hand on one shoulder, one on the other shoulder. And my hands handcuffed behind my back as they would take me to my fenced-in area, 7 foot by 12 foot to exercise. A man walked up to me and he said, Mr. Williams, again, a Nigerian accent, right? Mr. Williams, may I speak to you? I was like, yeah. He introduced himself to me.
Okay.
His name was Bright Ogado.
Wow.
His name means light of God. So Bright Ogado tells me he's in his late 40s. He has a master's degree and a bachelor's degree from Brooklyn University in finance. He was in real estate. He was the son of a Nigerian diplomat. He has 5 kids, a wife. He was in real estate and did some sort of, he considered himself the last man holding a hot potato, and he got indicted for a real estate deal in New York. Somebody took out too much of a loan, whatever. I don't know the details. In prison, you don't ask too many details about folks like that, right?
No.
Even though they're white collar crime folks, you don't ask them. So anyway, he told me that he felt that he had disgraced his entire family. He had let them all down. He found himself in solitary confinement now because he got into a fight in the prison. Because a young man wanted to use his toilet. In the prison, it's called the cell phone. You take all the water out of the cell and you can talk to people below or above. He said he was so depressed that he found himself in solitary, he decided to take his own life. and he had written a letter to his family. And he said after he wrote his letter, he looked out the small window in his cell and he saw them handcuffed and walking me through the hallway. And he said, that is Mr. Williams. He was the DA. He lost more than I'll ever lose. Yet he is still standing. If he can survive, so shall I. I was like, wait a minute. Are you telling me you didn't commit suicide because you saw them walking me and I just lost everything? And you that's what, he's like, yes, Mr. Williams. My wife still has a husband. My children still have a father because of you. And so Malik, that just blew me away. Because from my perspective, I had lost everything, right? Mm-hmm. And everything was forlorn. But like Picasso's Cubism art, like I said, my dad was an artist. So in Cubism, you might see an ear like this,
right,
or an ear like this. It's the same ear, mm-hmm, from a different perspective. So what happened to me, in one perspective, was terrible. I was ridiculed. I was disgraced. People think I'm this or that. But by being in that prison, when I was, Bright Agado didn't kill himself. I later went on. They had me in solitary because they thought that the inmates would want to hurt me. The truth is the inmates would have hurt each other if one of them wanted to hurt me, because they would give to the COs notes to bring me to help them read a letter their mother sent or their wife sent, help them respond to letters their kids wrote.
Let me ask you a question. I mean, because that has to be a very unique perspective. I mean, a prosecutor literally going into the place where you've sent.
Belly of the beast. And Malik, after my first weekend, I was incarcerated on a Thursday. By that Monday, I really felt, despite me having been a prosecutor for so many years, being a lawyer for 25 years, having been a defense attorney, a prosecutor, a civil attorney, I learned more that weekend from the guy in his cell next to me, talking through the vent about what to expect, what was going to happen. And I learned a perspective on the criminal justice system that I wish more prosecutors, more judges could go through what I went through just for a little bit. I think it would completely change the mindset of a lot of people about how we use our criminal justice system, how it has to be much more restorative than punitive, how we have to do so much more on the front end to prevent crime, to try to make victims whole, to show respect for all of those that are involved or accused, to reduce recidivism. So many parts of this that, while yes, the thing that upsets me the most is that my mother and my daughters were hurt the most by my incarceration, right? My actions led to that, and I have to own that. And while you have people that have responded to me being on the show, and some people have tweeted or sent me ugly messages, I get it. And I have to accept that. Hopefully the pattern of the rest of my life will teach them something, hopefully. But if not, I just know that the lives of my daughters and my mother's were damaged the most by my absence. And I have to do all that I can to address that over the rest of my life. But I just learned so much while I was away. In the segment you had before mine with Doug and with Kyndal, you were saying that you were worried that maybe they were going to take away your NAACP card or something.
Yeah.
When I spent the majority of my incarcerated period in Morgantown, West Virginia. And I can tell you almost all the negative things, stereotypes, jokes about West Virginia are true. But where I spent a lot of time with people I never would have spent time with.
Wow.
Meth addicts from Appalachia. People with KKK, just ugly tattoos on their head, who were in the GED class that I taught.
Wow.
Or I was in a dog training program, learning how to train dogs. Okay, and the most racist people in the prison were in that program. But what I really learned a lot was that all of us have suffered some form of trauma. But those people, the most racist white people that I experienced and came into contact with, they had been lied to as well. They thought that if nothing else, they were better than me, other brown and other black people that were there. They were better than us just because they were white.
Right.
Where the reality is that poor white people and poor black people have much more in common with each other
Indeed.
than the wealthy people of either race.
Indeed.
But people benefit from keeping us all separate and angry.
You know what's interesting? When I think about your learning, your academic journey, you are quite qualified to serve in the legal capacity, quite qualified to be district attorney. You brought a breadth and depth of knowledge to the table. But now you talk more about these life lessons of sitting down with those across the table whom you don't have similarities with on the onset.
Correct.
Right? It takes time to dig into that conversation. And I think it's so crucial because we just watched a whole, really 4 years.
Right.
But even prior to those 4, let's be honest, one may be an accelerator, but there was much more activity at play.
Sure.
Of individuals who refused to talk to each other, who refused to find the levels of common ground that you found with those, who your acumen in the professional space played a role in even placing them there. Talk about how crucial it is now for all of us to understand the importance of finding common ground at this stage in life.
Well, again, I think your previous segment, you talked about the need to be critical thinkers. We need to gather information and really evaluate information. And I had the opportunity, I had to live with folks to really begin to see them more than just as defendants, as I might have thought of them when I was the district attorney, to see them as full three-dimensional people. I think I'd be a much better district attorney today than I was then.
Wow.
And I used to be in spheres and at banquets with Governor Rendell, right? Chief Justice Ron Castile, Arlen Specter. And I would joke, Philadelphia's had great DAs. Those men, F. Emmett Fitzpatrick, right?
Right.
And I would say my only hope was to be considered Philadelphia's second best district attorney. And they would love that and they would laugh.
Yeah.
But I think for me now, what I learned while I was away, because I used to always talk about we can't incarcerate our way out of crime, right? We have to address the educational, training, equities, opportunities. And again, you talked about Booker T. Washington, right? And the greatest way I see now to end that cycle of mass incarceration is through training. We have to address the root causes. Every $100 spent on early childhood education, we save $600 on prison costs.
Indeed.
Right? We need to address the criminological needs. When I was in prison, they didn't address almost anything to help people when they got out. I was fortunate and blessed. I was selected to go through training. I was certified to be a GED instructor. And I'll tell you, I'm thankful for the gun violence reduction programs that I was able to create in Philadelphia and the diversionary programs based on things that our now Vice President Kamala Harris had created when she was the DA of San Francisco that I replicated. other than my daughters and maybe the church carnival that I created at my church, I'm proudest of the fact that 19 of my students earned their GED.
Beautiful.
And I think the most important thing I learned, and I tell you, I probably learned more from the men that I taught in GED than I taught them, despite me having multiple degrees and them not. Yeah. Okay. So I had to recognize that and learn more humility. And it's all about respect. We have wars at the macro level because people don't have respect. Countries don't respect somebody crossed the imaginary parallel line, right? That starts a war.
Yeah.
We have disrespect and shootouts, not because drug dealers took each other's drugs, but because somebody fouled somebody too hard on the ball court.
Yep.
Somebody stepped on somebody's butters, right? Yep. Those micro disrespects cause fights and shootouts at basketball courts or wherever. So I learned about that and the need for more respect. But what I learned, Malik, more than anything, was that the folks need the training that Booker T. Washington spoke of to get jobs. But almost all of the men that I taught GED, they had jobs in the past. They had legal jobs that they supplemented with illegal activities or things that led them to prison, one way or the other. What they didn't have, and what we really need to provide more people with, are the life skills to not only enter the workforce, but to remain in the workforce, to thrive in the workforce, show up on time, be respectful, call people Mr. and Mrs., right?
Hold on, Seth. So Joe Bryant, I'll be honest, I find myself getting emotional about this conversation.
That's okay.
I want to read something to you. This is in our comment section. Joe Bryant says, wow, all I can do is forgive this man. We all have to learn our lesson. Our walk inside is so much alike. I also held the story of Joseph, 3 Hebrew boys close to me, along with some of those same questions to my Lord. Why me?
Right.
To Lord, what is it that you want from me to get from this? I needed to see this to restore some of my emotional and emotional accomplishments that I achieved while incarcerated. In a lot of ways I forgot. Please tell this brother he is forgiven. We are not perfect.
Well, I appreciate that from him. I had to learn to forgive myself. That was the thing that kept me up the most at night.
Yeah.
But it's ironic, or it's the Holy Spirit, that he mentions the story of Joseph. Because for the longest time, I thought my life I was looking at it from the perspective of Job. But then after what happened with my friend Bright Agato and him telling me that he was going to kill himself, right? I began seeing it through the perspective of Joseph, the story of Joseph in Genesis, right? His dad loved him the most, his brothers thought. They concocted a plan to kill him by throwing him in a pit.
Indeed.
Then there was a slave seller walking past. They said, we'll sell him to the slave seller. Joseph then found himself a slave working for Potiphar. Potiphar's wife thought he was beautiful. He's a sexy 17-year-old. She wanted him. He said, no, that'd be an abomination. She then alleged that he raped her.
Yeah.
He was falsely accused, went to prison, became the best inmate, could interpret dreams. Ultimately, Pharaoh made him the number 2 man in Egypt, and he came up with the whole plan of how to recultivate and cycle crops that made Egypt the dominant economic force that it was. I had to begin to see my life. The punchline to the story of Joseph is in Genesis chapter 50, verse 20. And it says that what others intended for my harm, God used for good, the saving of many lives. And so again, I had to come and accept, I lost my house, I lost my pension, A lot of the people who I thought were really my friends, they really aren't.
Yeah.
They stopped writing.
Yeah.
People who I had driven them from dinner with me and my girlfriend, took them to their homes.
Yeah.
One man in particular, who everybody thinks is he does all this for ex-offenders, he's got a business, does all these jobs, didn't want me to have his address to send him a letter from prison.
Wow.
I had to learn that all these things, the perspective I had, it's not for me. It's not about Seth. It's not about me getting awards or even that nice man forgiving me. It's all for the glory of God. God using us in different places, different points. They say the battle isn't ours, it's God's. It's not. That I used to think that meant when I'm in a fight, I need to call on God because it's his fight. No. What I think that really means is that whatever's going on, even if it might seem to my detriment, is for God's glory.
Yeah, and there's levels to this, right? Scripture is clear, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, spiritual wickedness in high places. This is bigger than our physical experience ever will be. And although, unlike Joseph, there were reasons why you found yourself in the pit.
Correct.
It is the pit moment that brings perspective to the palace.
Right.
And helps you understand, and so, Seth, I think there's so much here, not just for the community. I think the community is made better because of your willingness to listen to where God wants you to be in this space. But I also think that there's a conversation that needs to happen with those who are elected, those who are in leadership. There are conversations that need to happen with those who are in the corporate space, and even those of us who just simply, I'll put my hand up, those of us who are simply full of pride in the space because we can be, because we are, we believe we are in control. We are not in control.
Right.
And it's only a decision.
Correct.
To change our lives for the rest of our lives. We all forget that at times. And so if there's one thing that you could say to Philadelphia, I mean, because there are many that are saying, I need Seth to apologize, and I need Seth to tell me how much he knew he was wrong, and I need Seth to do this, that, and the third. What is it that you want to say from your heart to the heart of the city?
There's just so much. I think that we really need to, if we talk about second chances, we have to not want to just ask for ourselves. We have to work daily to improve the quality of lives of other people. I think if nothing else, what I want to really share with folks is that it's not about memorizing and quoting scripture, but it's really about modeling my life now, trying to reflect the life of Jesus Christ of the Gospels. He wouldn't have wanted to build a wall at our border. He would have also wanted to make sure we had health care for everybody, jobs, respect, right? So I really believe in those things now. And again, at the very onset, I try to say that for all those who I've wronged, folks I let down, I'm sorry. I think that I became intoxicated in some ways with the job, having 2 security guards with me everywhere I went. You can lose perspective in some ways. And I try to talk to people now who are business executives, people who are in government, to do what the stewardesses say on airplanes, right? When the oxygen mask drops, put it on your face. So many of us don't do what we need to do to take care of our own mental health in a healthy way. And I was forced to do that while I was away. Now I taught myself how to play the saxophone. And so now when I feel anxiety, too much stress, instead of just an extra martini, right? Or texting somebody that was going to lead me to do some sort of self-destructive behavior,
Right.
I just get out my alto sax and just start playing the sax.
So it looks like you and I are going to be in that same space.
There you go.
And is now my space of mental fortitude.
Is that a violin or a viola?
No, this is violin, brother.
Okay.
Yeah, 4x4. So, but to your point, there are ways for us to do it, ways for us to address. You know, it. Doug, who's on the show, just said, "Hey, look, Seth, continue to let God use you and be that beacon of light." Thank you. Everybody can tell a story, but everybody can't share a story. Therein lies a difference.
Yeah.
What's next for you, Seth? I mean, you know, when you come from a space where you have all these material things, and all of us are there. I need to drive the BMW.
Yeah.
I need to live in this house. I need to have this level of money. I need crystals and Four Seasons at the top floor. I need all of those things because that's what society says. And so I can put it on Instagram and look fly and filter myself and present this. All of that was stripped away down to a 2x3 by 1 foot
locker
with everything that you had in there.
Right.
Your perspective on material things,
much different,
sure, has drastically changed. Talk to us about understanding that it's not the material things, but the value of the relationships, the value of the time, in that, you know, all of this extravagance. Solomon wasn't the only one that said, look, the end of things is this: fear God and check out of this joint, right? You've experienced that too. So talk about that perspective.
Yeah. So while I was away, I was also trained to be a suicide prevention cadre member. Okay. So when people were a threat to harm themselves, I was one of the team members that would sit in an observation room with them. And what I learned from that, and what I learned as a general rule from my incarceration, is that the greatest present we can give someone, right? It's not presence.
Yeah.
It's presence.
Yeah.
It's just being there. When our friends are in crisis, when people are in crisis, they don't need us to tell them how to get through it, or it's not that bad, or he had it worse. It's just to be there and be quiet and be there with them. So I really had to learn that. And so all the material things that I had, I recognized fleeting. They'll be gone in an instant. Our life on earth is very brief, right? I had to look at it from a bigger perspective, not just the hopefully 60, 70, 80 years maybe, but for the whole arc of eternity, that our life here is a test. It's temporary, right? And we're just a trustee of all that we see. And so if nothing, I want to use my professional experience of crime prevention, recidivism reduction, all those things that I learned before. I don't want to go into court and try cases. I want to use those experiences combined with what I learned on my personal journey to really help folks deal with their addictions, making healthier decisions one day at a time, learning a vocational skill and the life skills, like I said, to remain in the workforce. Most of the guys I talked to, right, while I was in prison, they had the wrong thought. They thought they might become, millionaires selling crack or heroin. They quickly found out that the kid on the corner slinging a rock, the person most likely to get arrested or most likely to get shot, is making about $8 an hour. And would probably make more if you went to the supermarket, bought a case of water, and sold each one for $1.
Yeah.
But what these men needed was a sense of their own self-value, how to deal with all of the traumas that they had been through, how to deal with those traumas in a healthy way. Because all of the men that were there that were heroin dealers were also heroin addicts.
Wow.
The meth dealers were almost all meth addicts too, missing all of their teeth. Okay?
Yeah.
Who we prosecute in federal court is very selective. Okay, we're not even going to have that discussion.
Yeah,
because that might get me taken back before the judge to talk about how I feel about the federal system.
right.
But what we really need to do is help people deal with their addictions, how to deal with their stress, their trauma in healthier ways.
Indeed.
Give them a roadmap to a healthy life, because so many people didn't have it. I tell folks, again, Malik, my father was a school teacher. He worked at Salisbury Junior High School for 30 plus years. Every night he ran and worked at the rec center in our neighborhood at 63rd and Spruce, Cobbs Creek Rec Center.
Yeah.
Every summer he ran a day camp. I tell folks, I know he did much more to prevent crime than I ever will.
Wow.
And so if I could do it, what am I going to do with my life now? Well, hopefully someone will give me the opportunity. In addition to, I'm very thankful George Mosey lets me work with the Philadelphia Anti-Drug, Anti-Violence Network, right, as a consultant there. My friend Roosevelt Hairston was allowing me to work with the Hairston Foundation to help returning citizens.
Yeah.
Hopefully I can find a place where I can use my professional experience, my communications, leadership, strategic leadership abilities, combined with what I learned in prison, teaching GED every day, right, to help people learn a real vocation that's applicable to the real economy in Philadelphia and the life skills they need to remain and thrive in the workforce. That's my goal. And if I can do that, in addition to hopefully reconciling relationships with people that love me that were damaged or destroyed as a result of my incarceration, if I can do those things, then I think everything will be for the best.
I'll tell you, Seth, I think you're already well on that journey. We're at the end of the show. I wanted to talk more about even how we connected, and maybe we'll do that again on another interview. But even how we connected, it was so powerful.
Sure.
And so those ways, those steps that God has ordained for you and that you're also willing to take, because the obedience is truly better than the sacrifice, right? And so being willing to obey has created what I believe is going to be a very powerful lane. You have an amazing story. You have so much more potential even now than you did as DA. You really do. And so I know that if God has you in his hand, and I'm sure others, all of us are looking at your story in this interview today going, I need to get a little closer to God. I need to read a little more. I need to pray a little more. I need to curb my ego and my enthusiasm a little more, because Seth brought back a diamond from pressure that created that diamond that may burst my pipe.
Right.
And so let me learn from him. And so, Seth, I thank you, my brother, for sharing your story, sharing your heart with us. You already know this is home.
Okay.
So we're going to do this again. We're going to talk about issues. I want to be able to bring you back and really get your perspective, because you have such a tremendous perspective on the issues of the day. And I think all of us around the country will be made all the more better from hearing your thoughts, your wisdom, and your value.
Well, thank you very much. And again, any of your listeners, if they want to contact me, they can send me an email at rsethwilliams2.0@gmail.com.
I love that email.
Yeah. And they can
love that email.
They can follow me on Twitter. My handle there is @DA Seth Williams.
We're going to make sure at the conclusion of this interview, and we'll post it on our social media pages as well. Seth, I'm telling you, man to man, and I represent those who have care and concern for you and love for you. We love you, brother. It's good to see you. It's good to have you back with us, and we're looking forward to what God has in store for you.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk to you, to talk to your viewers. But hopefully, if my story, what people would perceive as a tragic downfall, if that can help some folks to have hope or others to make better decisions, then it would have been a time well spent here with you and the 34 months that I spent in jail.
You've already blessed me, brother, and so that goal is already accomplished. But I know there are hundreds of others who are watching now that feel the same way. And so we'll make sure that we stay in touch and bring you back.
Okay, anytime.
Yes. So I'm at a loss for words. There's so many lessons there. We didn't even begin to scratch the surface of the diamonds that have come from the pressure of wrong decisions, of missteps. All of us are all just one decision away from having our lives change for the worse, forever, right? It's that road rage incident where we feel the need to, say something that could potentially escalate. It's the way that we address something on the job. It's the way that we, address and talk to those we perceive that hate us or are haters in our situation. It's the greed that says, look, I know this is wrong, but just a little more. It's the addictions, whatever they may be, that challenge us and allow us to make some interesting decisions. We all, and I put my hand up first, we all have the ability to do better and learn from those who had a pit experience. Seth is one who has received a second chance. I won't say deserves a second chance. He has received a second chance because we aren't the ones who give second chances. God does. And so he's already determined that he deserved and received his chance. You could sit there and hate on it all day long, but there's some lessons that he brought to the forefront that are good for all of us, myself included. And so I'm playing back this episode for myself all throughout this week. Yes, we can hurt, we can be hurt others. When we come out of that and we recognize what we've done, there's a healing stage that has to happen. Seth talked about his journey to healing and the opportunities there in that space. And after we come out of the healing space, we learn, hey, it's time to help with all that I know, with all that I've experienced. There's something now to add to the community. There's something now that we can give to others, not just for enrichment for ourselves, but for enrichment of the community as a whole. And then we learn in that fourth stage how to harmonize. Learn how to sing the same song. It may not be on the same key as the other individual, but yet we're in such harmony that it's a sweet sound to all who hear it. That's what the community is all about. If we're in lockstep, if we're harmonizing, people go through our community, they engage our community and recognize everybody's in step, doing what they need to do, doing it the way it needs to be done. And as a result, this community is thriving, it's growing. Seth is now singing in the key of restoration, in the key of redemption. Many of us, including myself, are learning our key, what stage of life we need to begin to sing and how to sing it in the key that makes sense for that season. I hope this show has been a blessing to you. I'm thankful for those who commented. I'm thankful for those who have texted me during this interview. Yes, we will look forward to bringing Seth back to talk about more issues, to address, the issues of the day. I know some of you wanted to hear his perspective on the crime and the current climate, and we'll ask him to do just that. He always has a home here, as do all of our guests. Again, I hope this has been the blessing to you that it has been to me. Hurt, heal, help, harmonize. Acting like any of those in the space don't exist will only lead to a broken reality for us all. We must acknowledge them all equally. We must address them all equally. We must respect them all equally. And if we do that, the world is a better place. I am thankful for you tuning in today. You guys have been absolutely amazing, as you always are. If this show has been a blessing to you, we're not going to ask you to Cash App and PayPal us and all those things. Here's what we're asking you to do. Let's need you to subscribe today. It's really simple. Just go to the YouTube channel, click the button, become a part of the family, and then click the bell that gives you the notification that lets you know that we are on and that we are in programming mode, and there's benefits to that. You'll get the updates and bonus content and some of all the great things that we have planned for you this coming season. You can find us on social media, HeartCity TV, at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And as always, feel beautiful, look beautiful, and act beautiful. Why? Because you truly are beautiful. I see you next week.